The halls of Roosevelt Middle School in Chicago were always loud during the mornings. Lockers slammed shut. Students laughed with friends. Teachers rushed through the hallways carrying coffee and lesson plans while cafeteria workers prepared breakfast behind steaming counters. But before all of that noise began, before the first student even walked through the doors, there was always one man already inside the building. 62-year-old Walter Harris. Every single morning, long before sunrise, Walter quietly pushed his old cleaning cart through the empty school hallways wearing the same faded blue janitor jacket he had owned for years. Most students barely noticed him. To them he was just the quiet old janitor who cleaned classrooms, fixed broken desks, and mopped muddy floors after everyone went home. But what nobody realized was that Walter paid attention to things most people completely ignored. Especially hungry children. Every morning Walter watched the cafeteria carefully. He noticed the students who walked past breakfast pretending they weren't hungry. He noticed the children who quietly checked their lunch balance before lowering their heads in embarrassment. He noticed the kids who sat alone with only a carton of milk while other students laughed around full trays of food. And every single time he saw it, his heart broke a little more. Because Walter knew exactly what hunger felt like. When he was a little boy growing up on the south side of Chicago, there were nights his mother pretended she already ate dinner just so her children could have enough food. Walter still remembered the pain of sitting in classrooms with an empty stomach, trying to focus while feeling weak and ashamed. He remembered classmates making jokes while he prayed nobody would hear his stomach growling. And maybe that's why, years later, he could never ignore hungry children. One afternoon Walter noticed a sixth-grade boy sitting alone outside the cafeteria pretending to read a science book while everyone else ate lunch. The boy's name was Devin. His sneakers were torn, and his hoodie sleeves were too short for his arms. Walter sat beside him quietly and asked why he wasn't eating. At first the boy shrugged and said he wasn't hungry. But after a long silence, Devin finally whispered the truth. "My mom lost her job," he said softly. "We're trying to save food at home." Walter felt something heavy settle inside his chest. That same afternoon, without telling anyone, Walter walked into the cafeteria office and paid the boys' overdue lunch balance himself. The next week he did it again for another student. Then another. Then another. And slowly, year after year, it became a secret routine. Every month after receiving his paycheck, Walter quietly visited the cafeteria office and asked which children had unpaid meal accounts. Sometimes he paid $10. Sometimes $50. During difficult winters when more families struggled financially, Walter skipped buying things for himself completely just to make sure students could still eat lunch at school. For 12 years, he told nobody. Not his coworkers. Not the principal. Not even the children he helped. Walter never wanted students feeling embarrassed or ashamed. He understood how painful pride could become when poverty already made children feel invisible. So instead of handing them food publicly, he quietly erased their debt so they could simply walk through the lunch line like everyone else. And for 12 long years, nobody knew. Then one cold November morning, everything changed. A new cafeteria employee accidentally mentioned during a staff meeting that the mysterious person paying students' lunch debts for years was actually Mr. Walter from maintenance. At first nobody believed it. But when administrators checked old records, they discovered the truth. Walter Harris had personally spent more than $40,000 of his own money feeding hungry students. The entire school fell silent. Teachers cried openly after hearing the news. Cafeteria workers covered their mouths in shock. Former students began sharing stories online about times their lunch cards suddenly started working again during the hardest moments of their childhood. And suddenly, the quiet janitor almost nobody noticed became the heart of the entire community. But Walter hated the attention. When the principal asked him to stand on stage during a school assembly, Walter looked deeply uncomfortable as hundreds of students applauded him. He kept lowering his eyes toward the floor because in his mind, he had not done anything special. He simply saw hungry children. And he remembered what it felt like to be one of them. Then, something happened that nobody inside the gymnasium would ever forget. A senior student named Elena Rodriguez slowly walked onto the stage holding a folded piece of paper with trembling hands. Tears already filled her eyes before she even started speaking. 6 years earlier, Elena explained, her father had been deported unexpectedly while her mother struggled to support 3 children alone. There were nights they barely had enough food inside their apartment. Some days, school lunch was the only real meal she received. Then Elena looked directly at Walter. By now her voice was shaking badly. "I never knew who helped me back then," she whispered through tears. "But now I do." The gym became completely silent. Elena wiped tears from her face before speaking again. "You fed me when my family couldn't," she said softly. "And because of that, I survived long enough to believe my life could become something better." By then students, teachers, and parents throughout the entire auditorium were openly crying. Even Walter himself quietly wiped tears from his face. For the first time in years, the old janitor who spent his life helping invisible children finally realized something. The children had never forgotten him either. Weeks later, after local news stations shared Walter's story across America, donations poured into the school from strangers wanting to continue his mission. The district created a permanent meal assistance fund in Walter Harris's name so no child in the school would ever go hungry again. But despite the attention, despite the interviews, despite being called a hero by thousands of people online, Walter still arrived before sunrise every morning. Still pushed the same old cleaning cart down the same quiet hallways. Still checked the cafeteria first before doing anything else. Because deep inside, he never cared about recognition. He only cared that no child should ever have to learn while carrying the pain of hunger alone. And maybe, that is what true kindness looks like. Not loud. Not famous. Not seeking applause. Just one tired old janitor, quietly feeding children when nobody else was looking.